Good afternoon, everyone. This is Ed Long. I'm Deputy Director here at the California Department of Aging for the Long-Term Care and Aging Services Division, and I'm here with Amanda Evans, our Fiscal Officer, and June Ditchen, our Policy Manager for Program Fiscal, for this webinar on understanding federal deadlines using the budget display footnotes as a tool. We think this webinar will be very helpful to you in understanding the reporting requirements under our contract for fiscal years 16-17. And there will be opportunity to send questions in, both in writing, and we will open up the lines at some juncture for questions over the phone. So without further delay, let's get started. Amanda and June.
Thank you. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. So let's talk about our objectives for this webinar. So what we're going to be doing during this webinar, and this is slide 1, is we're going to be discussing where the funding comes from. So the flow of funding. And who generates that, and how your contracts come together, and where that original fund source is. And then transparency. So what does that exactly mean? What's transparency for each funding source, and how do we need to report it so that the information is shared openly? And then probably what you want to hear the most, and what you've noticed have changed slightly, are the footnotes contained in your budget displays. Your area plan, Title V, and HICAP budget displays are all footnoted. And the footnotes on the displays are labeled an A, B, and a C. With that, this is a tool that you can use to help remind you of some reporting dates. Okay, and I'm going to let Amanda.
Okay, so the first item on our that bullet list was the flow of funding. So today we're going to focus on the 2 granting authorities that for the area plan, HICAP, and financial alignment, and MIPA, which is the Administration on Community Living. We will also be, since we're going to be talking about Title V, we will the federal agency for Title V is the Department of Labor. Both those granting authorities provide the grant awards to the Department of Aging. And then we flow the money out to the local PSAs or out to you, and then the flow of the funds could go to a service provider, excuse me. Based on all the requirements of receiving these federal funds, that you must spend and report these funds based on those grant award and the terms and conditions within those awards. So how do we make that happen? We do that based on the requirement for receiving those funds, which is what June was talking about, the transparency. It's part of the Federal Funding Accountability and Transparency Act, is what it is, that all recipients of these federal funds must report the information into a system, and that system therefore will define the federal spending at the most transparent level. There is also another piece of the FFATA requirement that requires all Title III subparts. A subpart would be 3B, C1, C2, must be reported separately, individually, based on the federal grant award. So what does that mean? That means that the state and all AAAs must report the information, the funds, so the requests for funds, and expenditures for each of the grant awards to promote the government accountability. Today we're going to specifically discuss the deadlines related to that, which would be the request for funds, expenditure reporting, any transfer allowances, which are more in the area plan, and then all the reports that are tied to that. Give it to June so she can kind of go over what's included in the contract.
Okay. Exhibit B, Article 5, payments. So the Exhibit B of your area plan contract, your HICAP contract, and your Title V contracts that we're going to be discussing all have this table that you see in the center there, monthly fiscal reporting due dates. So those due dates are, that's a tool for you as a AAA to use, and also for you to know what we anticipate you need to have for your deadlines. Because we do advance funds to you, you're going to see the box that's related to the request for funds. The month July, the request for funds due date is the end of May. And then your expenditure report for the month of April is also due in May. So when you're looking at that, we're looking at the July request for funds in your new contract, 16-17. That April expenditure report is your current contract, 15-16. Now we do allow this delay in reporting your expenditures, but the expectation from CDA is that you're going to be timely. Because if for some reason your contractors are unable to report to you within 30 days, you must report something to CDA timely in order for CDA to report that data to the federal funding source. Because CDA is required to report your expenditures on these grants on a quarterly basis. And if you fall behind, we shall also fall behind. And then it would appear that we are not spending these grant dollars. And I know that that's not what's happening out there, that you have many services that are occurring out in the field and the grant dollars are being spent, but it would appear that that would happen. So that's when we will go out to monitor. We'll look at that, and you may receive a monitoring finding for not reporting timely. So moving on, we have additional information in Exhibit B, Article 6, your closeouts. So this is where you report all of your final expenditures. Everything that's happened within your contract, this is where it happens. The final expenditures must be reported to CDA in accordance with the budget display in Exhibit B. So if the expenditures reported by the contractor exceeds the advance amount, CDA will reimburse the difference to the contractor. If the expenditures reported to the contractor are less than the advance amount, CDA will invoice the contractor for unspent funds. Now we do advance the funds to you, and it is our preference here at CDA that your expenditures are as accurate as possible. As you get close to the end of your contract period, you should be able to estimate that out, and you should also look to your contractors to do the same thing. If the expenditures come in accurately, we will not have to reimburse you any differences, and or we would not have to invoice you. And that's the key, to avoid the piece where we're invoicing you unspent funds. The idea is to report as accurately as possible so that you don't have to do that. Okay, and moving on, Amanda's going to talk a little bit about your budget displays.
Okay, as we see from the slide, the budget displays contain the allocation by each funding source. We have the new footnotes like June spoke about earlier that will provide additional details related to the expenditure deadlines, the transfer options, so the different time periods that you're going to need to report the transfer for, and the deadline for those transfer documents. And then finally the reporting deadlines. There's also the administrative maximums and the required match included on the budget displays, but we're not going to probably go over very much of that today. The next slide is a very small, but we just wanted you to get the idea that when you look at the whole budget display, you can see the part that we're going to be discussing is the circled part there, which is the footnotes, and like June spoke earlier, it's the A, B, and C. The next slide shows you a better view so you can see what we're talking about. This is only the admin part of it, but it's all applicable. For A, which if you look, it's, for example, it's the bottom two items on that list, is mainly for our general fund. And as we know, the state's fiscal year ends on June 30th, so therefore funds must be expended by June 30th. And then the final expenditures are reported in your closeout, which is due on July 31st. The next footnote, which is the B footnote, which if you look at this display, it's the first line item up there. For example, the Title 3B, but it's also related to C1 and all the other funding as you look through that list. So those funds must be obligated by September 30th of, for example, in this contract, 2016. And final expenditures will be reported at the closeout, which is due again July 31st. The baseline request to be transferred, the baseline request, sorry, to transfer these project, so this period of time, which is from July 1st, 2016, so the beginning of the contract, through September 30th, 2016, so really the first 3 months of the contract, to be able to transfer those funds, that report is due on May 1st. The funds may not be carried over as they are part of the, and will not be included in the next year's contract. Those funds must be used first. Item C of the footnote C, which you can see is like the second line item of the display, so it's the federal fund Title 3B. This is the new grant, the grant that becomes available October 1st, 2016 in this contract. So those funds must be reported in the closeout by July 31st, and those potentially will be carried over into the next contract. The baseline transfer, the transfers for those funds that can be reported, again, it's the funds that are been available from October 1st, 2016 through June 30th, 2017 is due on May 1st. That's the transfer request. So that is our area plan and the footnotes that relate to that. The next item we're going to be talking about is our Title V budget display.
Okay. All right, so here we go. Sample Title V. I was having just a moment there where I couldn't move to the next slide. So your Title V budget display. And this budget display moved back to a format that we used in 2012. And the reason being it allows some flexibility for you as the AAA. So you're going to see the total funds that have been allocated to you on your Title V budget display. Contained within that total are your set-asides. So you do have a minimum set-aside that must be set aside for Title V participant wages and fringe benefits. At a minimum, 79% of your funds should go towards that. It is footnoted on there. There's an asterisk that shows that. And then there's also an administrative maximum of 8%, which is also on the budget display. You do have the flexibility to move those funds in or out, but you must keep in mind that you have to set aside 79% towards the participant wages and fringe benefits. The other item that's shown on here are the number of participant slots. What you're looking at is statewide. So in your individual AAA budget display, you're going to see the minimum set aside for your participant slots. These participant slots are not a modified slot. Because in the state of California, our minimum wage is slightly higher, you can modify your slot, and there is a calculation to change the slots that are there. You want to contact your Title V program person if you don't know how to modify the slot. When you are budgeting funds for this, you need to budget as it is aligned to your budget display. If your budget shows a modified slot, your budget will not be approved. However, when you close out, if you need to modify the slots, and we anticipate most of the AAAs need to modify their slots, you are able to do that, and flexibility is allowed so. So moving on to HICAP, and Amanda's going to share some information about HICAP and the footnotes for the HICAP program.
Right, so again, this is a whole budget display, so we just wanted to highlight the items that we're talking about, which is in the red circled area, which is the footnotes, and again, it's an A, B, and C. Here's the bottom part of it, so it's larger, so you can see it more, what we're talking about. So for footnote A, which on this display is the top two line items, which are the state funds. We have those, again, like the state fiscal year ends on June 30th, and so therefore those funds must be reported and expended by June 30th, and then the final expenditure report is due in the closeout, which is due on August 15th. Footnote B, which is the third and fourth line item on that display there, those funds must be obligated by March 31st, 2017. That's when the HICAP grant is finalized, so those, or ends, excuse me, and so those final expenditures then would be reported in the closeout on May 15th, 2017. Now this is required because we need that for our federal reporting. And it's again, it's aligning with the timeline to report to the federal government. The last item is item C, which is the last item on the display. Those are the new funds. Those are the funds that have become available with the new grant on April 1st, 2017. Those funds must be reported in the closeout on August 15th, and those funds may be carried over into the next contract. And that's the budget displays for HICAP, and that's kind of what we were going to talk about.
Okay, so I can see we have a hand up for questions. I don't see the question online as of right now. Okay, so we have our phone lines are open. I can hear voices on the other end. So we are available for questions. You can either type in your question or you can I don't, if someone has asked a question, I could hear some phone noise, but I didn't hear any voice on the other line. So you may want to type that question in and we can, Amanda and I can read it and then respond. Okay, so again, I still don't, I don't see any questions being typed in. So we'll just hang on for a few minutes, and we'll patiently wait to see if there's anybody who has any questions. Okay. All right, I'm going to give it another minute, and then we're going to move on to our contact information in case you might want to contact us directly with your questions, or if in a month or so you may have a question in regards to some of the items that we've discussed. Oh, here we go. And I think this is PSA 19. Will there be any further guidance on the Ombudsman maintenance of effort?
So that's the information that you're talking about that you provide?
Okay, I'm gonna respond with a question back.
Yeah.
Is this question in reference to your current budget and the maintenance of effort lines that are on your current budget form? Yes, okay, all right, I can respond to this. All right, so that is a tool, it's an internal tool, and it doesn't say this on your budget form, and I will have this corrected in the future. That's really for CDA's use. CDA does this calculation to ensure that the Ombudsman funds are meeting the maintenance of effort when we review your budget. And so we do an internal calculation check on it. So that line that's in there, it should be an autofill. If it's not an autofill, please contact Vern Foster or Chia Lore and have them fix that on that form for you. But it is, it's for CDA use only. And I can tell you with this AAA, the person who's asking the question, you're not going to have a problem. You're going to be fine in this area. You'll meet the compliance check. Any additional questions? Okay, moving on then. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. Okay, I'm going to the next slide because we're almost done. Okay, here we go. So if you do have questions after looking at the slides and as you're filling out your budgets, you know, I will be available because I know that right now you're in the process of reporting your final expenditures for the year. So I'm here. This is June. If you have questions about it, any final requests for funds, and as you're entering that data into CARS, it's not on here, but I know you're working on your budgets and closeouts also at this given time, or you're trying to wrap up for that. Please feel free to give me a call. Please feel free to email me. And if I'm unavailable, contact your assigned fiscal person. They're always there to work on the information with you, and we really are here to assist all of you out there that are actually working with these fund sources, and we're trying to get the reporting as accurate as possible, so you know, don't hesitate to call. And Amanda is also available, so those of you that are looking at your allocations, if you want some status on the last payments that you've sent, you know, go ahead and touch base with her, and we're really happy to be here. And we do have one more question that's come in. So, are you going to email the PowerPoints to us afterwards? Okay, I can send them to you if you'd like, Mike. So yeah, we can send those out. I believe we're recording this too. So for those AAAs who, this is being recorded, so you'll be able to go back through the slides and listen to the recording. So it is being recorded. I don't know if the PowerPoint is going to be up on the website, but I can email the PowerPoint presentation out.
We're just talking about it, and we can put the Janine was saying we can put the PowerPoint presentation out on the web, because that is where the audio is also correct. So there we'll have both of them out there.
Okay, so the information will be available, and what we can do once it's available, we'll send an email out. So the AAA that's asking the question for the slides, would you like the slides now, or do you want to wait?
It should be out there very quick.
Yeah, I will talk to you soon then. So, but they should be out there shortly. Our IT, they're customer service oriented, and they work. Oh, he says he can wait. All right, you can wait. We'll send you an email then when everything's ready to be shared out. Any additional questions? Okay, so in closing, we're very thankful for everything that you do out there. And we do appreciate your patience with us, and we know that most recently we've had some federal reporting requirements that have changed. You know, we appreciate the fact that you've moved through those budgets as quickly as possible, and you're doing what you can to adjust your systems to report accordingly. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And that ends our...
That's it.